Today we are going to review a famous American that we already learned about in school and then also learn about a new one. What is the name of the lady that we learned about in class? I'll give you a hint. She started a bank. Please point to the title that shows her name. It is right here, Maggie L.Walker. That is her name. That is called a title. Can you point to a heading? The heading is right here. She started a bank. That's a good predictor to tell me that perhaps maybe Maggie L. Walker started a bank. You know, when we read, the very first thing we do is predict. So those things would give me a clue. The title, the heading, plus a picture here, a photograph of money. I see some other photographs on these pages, so that would make me think that this is a non-fiction story. Remember, non-fiction means it is not fake. Can you point to some captions that are on the page? Remember the clue I gave you. A cap covers your head, just like a cap can cover a photograph or illustration. Well, I see one over here. It tells us that Maggie L. Walker was born in 1864 and she died in 1934. So she is not alive anymore, but she still is very important. This is a photograph of some money, a 5-cent piece and a penny. The 5-cent looks a little different than what we have now. That has a Native American on it. Can you remember who is on the nickel now? I see some other photographs. There's one over here. This one says, "This is Maggie Walker with children from her neighborhood in Richmond. How do you think she changed the community?" We talked about that. She changed it by building schools and starting a newspaper. So let's go to the next page and learn about our next famous American from Virginia. Let's look here. I think this must be a nonfiction story too. Can you please point to the title? Yes, the title is right here, Arthur R. Ashe, Jr. Before we go any further with reading, let us go ahead and make some predictions about what this might be about. Well, I see a photograph over here of a young boy with a tennis racket. Can you see that? I wonder if it's the same person. And I see a caption right here. It says he was born in 1943 and he died in 1993. So he is no longer alive. Well, that looks like a tennis racket right here. So maybe he played tennis. Let's look at the next page. Well, point to the heading on this page. It is right here. It says sports hero and role model. He sure was, but he must have been really good because this photograph shows him holding a trophy. And down here is a picture of him with a tennis racket. That is a statue. It is not a real person. That is a statue of him. Well, here's something we haven't really seen too much. This says words to know. It says tournament, and then underneath it tells us how to pronounce it. Tournament. How many syllables is that? Go ahead and clap your hands. Tournament. That's right. It is 3 syllables. It tells us here a tournament is a very large sports competition. Well, he must have been pretty famous. He's got a trophy up here. I do see the word here in yellow, tournament. That's the same word in our words to know. Let's go ahead and I'll read it while you follow along. Tennis is a great sport. How did a man who loved this fun game become a symbol of the unfair treatment of African Americans? Remember, Maggie L.Walker was told she couldn't do anything because she was a black woman, and we know she was very successful. Let's see about Arthur R. Ashe. Arthur R. Ashe was born in Richmond, Virginia. He loved tennis. Ashe was one of the best tennis players in Virginia, but he could not play against white players because of the color of his skin. That was so unfair. Like Maggie Walker, Arthur Ashe did not let that stop him. Ashe never stopped practicing the sport he loved. Finally, he was allowed to play with the world's best tennis players. Let's think about that for a minute. Think about how you would feel if you couldn't do something because of the color of your skin. Or maybe because you're a boy and not a girl. Or maybe because you were a girl and not a boy. But did that those things stop him? No, it did not. Let's see what he did. Go to the next page. Our title says, the heading says, Sports Hero and Role Model. Let's see what he did. He became the first African American man to win a major tennis tournament. He became one of the most famous sports stars of all time. Still, he wanted to do more. Why, what more could he do than be one of the most famous sports stars of all times? Well, let's see what he did. Arthur Ashe said, "Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can." He used his fame to become a civil rights leader who fought for equal rights for all. How is that the same as what Maggie L. Walker did? Or what the women we talked about earlier that couldn't vote? Think about that. Talk about that with one of your parents about how he was a civil rights civil rights leader. This statue of Ashe is in our state capital, which is Richmond. What two things is Arthur Ashe holding? What do you think each item stands for? Well, let's take a look. Well, he's holding a tennis racket. We know he's holding that because he's a very good tennis player. But what else is he holding? It is a little difficult to see from the photograph, isn't it? What do you think he's holding? Think about how Arthur Ashe and Maggie L. Walker were the same, and think about some ways they were different, and talk about that with someone in your home. Today, we predicted, then we read, and then we organized to understand what we were reading, and then to deliver what you know, talk about it with one of your parents or somebody that lives in your house. You may have an older brother or sister, or an auntie, or an uncle, or a cousin, or a grandma and a grandpa. Ask them some questions. See if they know who Arthur Ashe Jr. is and Maggie L. Walker.